Please be seated. The court is now back in session, and before I hand the floor to the Defense Counsel for Kieu Sampon to comment on the 4 documents requested by the co-prosecutor, and before I again hand the floor to the International Deputy Co-Prosecutor and the lead co-lawyers to put further questions to witness, we have 4 oral rulings to issue. First is in relation to the request made by the defense team for Nguyen Chi pursuant to Rule 87.3 and 87.4 of the ECC internal rules. The Chamber notes that Defense Counsel for Nguyen Chi filed a written request under Internal Rule 87.4, that is document E424, on 20 July 2016 for the admission of 1 document, that is E319/43.3.3, which in its submission is relevant to the anticipated testimony of a witness through TCW 1005. The co-prosecutors informs the Chamber by email on 22nd July 2016 that they did not intend to object to the request. Having heard oral responses of the remaining parties, the Chamber decides to admit E319/43.3.3 into evidence with E number E3/10639. And the written reasons for this decision shall follow. This is the second oral ruling on Internal Rules 87.3 and 87.4, requests made during trial hearings. The Chamber notes that the Defense Counsel for Nguyen Chi filed a written request under Internal Rule 87.4, that is document E415/1 on 13 July 2016, for the admission of the CV of an article written by Henry Lockhart through TCE 90. By email on 15 July 2016, the parties were informed that any responses to this request shall be filed in writing on or before 22nd July 2016. The co-prosecutors filed a written response on 22nd July 2016 and noted that they did not object to the admission of documents pursuant to Rule 87.4, but noted that the CV of Henry Lockhart had already been admitted into evidence on 13 July 2016. The request with respect to his CV is therefore moot. No other responses were filed. The Chamber notes that given the date of the article, this request could have been made at an earlier date, and emphasizes that Rule 87.4 requests shall be made as soon as possible. However, having considered submissions by the parties on this request, the Chamber considers that admitting the article written by Henry Lockhart and published in February 2015 to be in the interest of justice, and that it may assist the Chamber in ascertaining the truth. The Chamber, noting the requirements of Internal Rule 87.4, therefore decides to admit into evidence document E415/1.1.1. This constitutes the Chamber's official response to the Rule 87 for request in E415/1. The related Rule 93 request will be addressed by written decision. And another oral ruling on internal rules 87.3 and 87.4 requests made during trial hearings. The Chamber notes that the co-prosecutors filed a written request under Internal Rule 87.4, that is document E415/2, for the admission of 9 chapters of 2 TCE 90, Henry Locard's book, Pourquoi les Khmer Rouges. By email on 15 July 2016, the parties were informed that any responses to this request shall be filed in writing on or before 22nd July 2016. The Defense Counsel for Khieu Samphan filed a response on 22nd July 2016, document E415/2/1. The Chamber also notes that the Khieu Samphan defense has already filed a request on 11 May 2016 for the admission of sections of the 2013 edition of the book, document E406, which was granted in E406/1. In its response to E415/2 on 22nd July 2016, the Khieu Samphan defense amended its request to refer to the 2016 edition of the book. On 25th July, the OCP was asked by email to clarify which version of the book it relied on for its request E415/2. Having considered the submissions of the parties, the Chamber considers that admitting chapters 3 through 11 of 2016 edition of the book Pourquoi les Khmer Rouges to be in the interest of justice, and that it may assist the Chamber in ascertaining the truth. The Chamber, noting the requirements of Internal Rules 87.3 and 4, therefore decides to grant the OCP request as regards chapters 3 through 11 of the book Pourquoi les Khmer Rouges. Chapters 3 to 11 of the 2016 edition assigned a number E3/10640. The remainder of the request, so far as it relates to Michael Vickery, is moot, given that Mr. Vickery will not be testifying as scheduled. This constitutes the Chamber's official response to E415/2. And the Chamber would like now to hand the floor to the Defense Counsel for Khieu Samphan to make comment or observations on the 4 documents that were not accessible this morning and that were requested by the co-prosecutors. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. So on the 4 documents, for 87.4, the request, we have no objection to the use or submission of these documents, with the clarification that from what we have seen, there is only really one document which contained the annotations of the witness themselves, which is the map, and the other annotations, the others are annotations from the co-investigating judges, which have indicated that these were documents used for this witness, and only one document, the document E3/10640, 48/1.3-3, which San Sen alias Q has made comments on, submitted by the co-investigating judges. So other than that, we have no objection, but we do have the impression that these are annotations of the witness rather than a document. Just a clarification. And I will take advantage of the fact that I have the floor to ask for a clarification in the framework of the decisions, the rulings that were handed down. I did not hear an answer to the question we had submitted on the chapters of the book by Henri Locard that the co-prosecutor had asked for. We would like to know which passages did the co-prosecutor hear, because all of the chapters together contain more than 100 pages, and for preparation it would therefore be useful to know which specific passages the co-prosecutor intends to use.
Co-prosecutor ready to answer this question before we deliberate on the decision?
Not right now, Your Honour, but we can provide them if the Chamber thinks it's necessary.
Juste, je précise que j'ai fait une erreur, c'est 250.
I would just like to clarify, I made an error. It's 250 pages which were admitted.
Si je me trompe pas, c'est exactement.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe we sent an email to the prosecutor to ask what was the exact version that he expected to use, the 2013 or the 2016 version, and I believe the co-prosecutors, did they answer this question?
Your Honours, I believe, we would be wishing to use the 2016 version, but I can sort of give you a more of an accurate position first thing tomorrow morning.
Non, mais je crois que cela permet.
I think that this is why we don't have a decision, because we're expecting to hear from the co-prosecutors on the co-prosecutors' request and yours before making a ruling.
President, since there is no objection by relevant parties, and after an observation was made by the Defense Counsel for Khieu Samphan, the Chamber will issue an oral ruling concerning the request by the co-prosecutors pursuant to Rule 87.3 and 87.4. The Chamber notes that the International Co-Prosecutor filed a written request under Internal Rules 87.3 and 4 on 18 July 2016. That is document A319/48/1 for the admission of 4 attachments to statements of witness to TCW 1005. The Chamber heard the submissions by the parties on this request this morning. Having heard the submissions by the parties on this request and noting the requirements of Internal Rules 87.3 and 4, the Chamber finds that the proposed document satisfies the criteria of Internal Rule 87.4 and admits them into evidence with the E numbers as follows: E3/10635 for the 119/84.1, E3/10636 for the 119/85.1, E3/10637 for the 119/87/1, and E3/10638 for the 119/85.2. This constitutes the Chamber's official response to E319/48/1. And I'd like now to hand the floor to the International Court Prosecutor to continue putting further questions to the witness.
Thank you, Mr. President, Your Honours, Counsel, and Mr. Witness. Witness, you stated that in March 1977 you were sent to Karachi, Sector 505. Is that correct?
Answer, that is correct.
And you've stated that you held the position of Deputy Chairman of Division 117 in Sector 505. Is that correct?
That is correct. The Deputy Chief of the office, not the Deputy Chief of the division. The Chief of the office is equal to staff.
Go to Sector 505 in March 1977. Why were you sent there? Just briefly.
Because the Vietnamese was fighting from all directions. That is why I was moved to that location to join my uncle. In fact, after I was moved to the location, I was not working close with him. I was sent to the office of the division instead.
And where was the office of the division located? Was it in Karachi town?
It was in the north of Karachi city. It was in Glogor, close to Glogor Bridge, and it was near Prechlung. The location was used to store ammunition. The ammunition which was brought from Phnom Penh was stored at the warehouse in Glogor. Again, the office was about 200 or 300 meters away from the Karachi city.
And you stayed in Sector 505 until the Vietnamese invaded, is that correct? And then you went to the western side of the country? Just briefly.
That is correct. it is in accordance with my previous statements.
And just briefly, can you say what job you did? What were your duties in Sector 505?
I was in the office. I was tasked with transporting ammunitions from Phnom Penh to be provided through the soldiers. Number two, I was responsible for the radio operation, that is, and also messages. So I was at the office in charge of the messages and radio operation. Number three, whatever needed by the battlefront would be provided by me, and I would take staff from the battlefront to the rear. During the time, the Vietnamese was really fighting strenuously against us.
Thank you. And I'm sure there's a lot of information that we could discuss in this regard. But I just want to focus you at the moment on some of the leadership in the CPK that worked in Sector 505 at the time. When you arrived, you said your uncle was in Karachi. What position did he have in Karachi?
He was the secretary of Snow District, and his office was in Som Around. He left the army and went to be in charge of the district.
Thank you. And who was the sector secretary of 505?
The secretary of Sector 505 include Moon Pon in hierarchical order. I was in a different location, so I do not know for sure, although the Karachi city was a small area. I could only learn some information.
I'm not sure if I heard you, but did you also say con or pon?
Con. Con.
Thank you. The division commander of Division 117, who was that?
The division commander name Mon Liang Nin, the commanders of Division 117.
Did you say one of the commanders was Liang? Liang?
In fact, at the time, the term commissioner was used. For example, Rom was the commissioner, Liang was the commander, and Nin was the member. So there was a group of three. Number two, Liang. Number one in the hierarchy was Rom.
Did you know who the district secretary of Karate district was?
Karachi secretary, to my knowledge, was Yang at the outset. He became the secretary of Karachi after he left 117.
When you went to Karachi, you stated in your statement that a sweeping clean operation of Sector 505 was being conducted, and I'll refer you to your statement. It's at E3/9814, English 0098 2728, Khmer 0097 5783 to 84, and French 0098 0813. And you said this in answer to the question, why did you know that Mir Smut had gone to Karachi and Stung Treng in order to examine the situation of the border conflict with the Vietnamese? You answered, I learned that through a regiment of the Navy that was under the command of Piep, who came to help my Division 117. At that time, a sweeping clean was being conducted. Is that correct? When you were in Sector 505, there was a sweeping clean operation of cadre in that sector when you were there?
That is true. That is true. As I said in my statements, there were two district committees for divisions. There was a reshuffle. New cadres went to replace the old one, and the old one was sent to Phnom Penh. That happened during the intensified situation pursued by the Vietnamese or Yuan. Mut came from Kampong Sam together with his division, his entire division. I was not working close to him. However, I know that he was based at his army was based at Luop in the south. For me, I was based close to the airfield. By then, Yuan already grabbed the territory at Prete, and yes, that is the statement that I made, Mr. Co-Prosecutor.
And in your statement, you discuss an event where you received an order for some senior leadership to be flown to Phnom Penh. Do you remember that event, and can you briefly describe what happened when those senior leadership were being called for?
President, please, Mr. Witness, please hold on. You may proceed. Counsel for Mr. Kiel Sampon.
Mr. President, I'll be very, very brief about this. of course, this is a general objection. I know that in light of the recent decision that you issue following our request on clarification with regard to the purges, you will probably reject it, but these elements are not part of the closing order, and therefore, in our view, they are not included in the current trial, so we therefore object to the fact that Kratche be brought up right now.
President Judge Lavaigne, you may proceed.
Counsel Kise, you're asking us to reconsider your request because we already answered it, as you know. So is this a request for reconsideration? And if it is such, what is the basis? It's not a request for reconsideration. I started my objection saying that I knew that you were going to overrule it. I still wanted to make the observation during this public hearing. So therefore there's no request.
Observation.
It's only observations for the record.
Thank you, Mr. President. Do you remember that event when the senior leadership was called for and were sent to Phnom Penh on a plane? And if you can you briefly describe it, please?
Allow me to expand it a little bit further. I only saw the letter from the airport. The letter states M870. I sent a letter to the divisional commander to have a look. We were told that the airplane would land at 9 o'clock. And in fact, there were two district committee for 2 regiments, 2 divisions, and other concerned people came to Phnom Penh by plane. I know about this because I received a letter, and I myself read the letter to the divisional commander. Thi and Kung, the messengers of Mut, delivered the letter to me. And I went to see Mut and I read the letter personally to him. That is what I learned. After their arrival, they never returned to their original place. Pon came to replace Muon. But the Kratche District Committee replaced Yang. After all chiefs went to a meeting, I went to visit Steng Strai, and after my return, there was an event that my leaders were considered betrayals.
Thank you. And if I just refer to your statement at E3/9814, English 00982728, Khmer 00975783 to 84, and French 00980813, just to put what you've said in context, you said, I remember that one day a messenger came from the airport to deliver a letter to Rom, the commander of Division 117, to have him attend at a meeting in Phnom Penh. That letter said that an aeroplane would arrive at 9 to pick them up. Rom ordered me and the other people to arrange a vehicle to take him to the airport. And he told me to read the letter that he just received, that he had put on the table. I saw that letter was sent from the Office 870. It said to send Rom and his deputy Liang, along with 4 people, from the regiment, 2 from the district, 2 from the sector, and 1 more division member to Phnom Penh. That letter listed the names of 11 people who were called to attend the meeting. The member of the Division 117 committee named Nim did not go with them. My question is, did you take, well, firstly, how did you know the letter was from Office 870? Was it signed? Did it have a stamp?
To my knowledge, the messages sent from the airport were through telegram. And the messages of the senior level were sent through telegram. Whenever we saw the writing of belongs to M870, we knew it was sure that it belongs to M870. There was no seal used or stamp used. Usually ROM received the message sometimes through radio communication, and name was made mention clearly the recipient. And as for Nim, he was engaged in the battlefield and he could not make it and came to Phnom Penh. So he was not able to came to Phnom Penh.
And in your statements, you have about 150 pages of statements. You discuss who was on the list and who was on the plane. But initially, I just want to ask you, on the order to send them to Phnom Penh, did it say why they should be going there? Did they say what the purpose of sending these people to Phnom Penh was?
If you asked me like that, I do not know how to explain. And usually the wounded soldiers were transported by airplane from Ranakiri and Mandalkiri. So if the meetings were to be convened, those invitees would arrive by plane. And the invitees include the divisional level and other levels as well. That communication was made through the telegram.
Did you, to the best of your memory, did you or someone contact these 11 people and take them to the airport and made sure they got on the plane?
I saw them off. I sent all of them. I drove them, all of them, in several vehicles. And we reached the blockade at one particular time. Our vehicles were not allowed to go in. Then we dropped them off and they walked beyond the barriers or the blockade. Then I went forward to Mandalkiri for tonight, and when I returned, I learned that the senior leadership was arrested.
You mentioned some of the senior leadership in Sector 505 a moment ago. I just have some questions about those people. So Sector 505 Secretary Mun, to the best of your knowledge, was he on the plane that day? Yes or no? If you're not sure, just say.
I know ROM, 2 district committees, 2 sector committees were removed. Liang came first, and after that ROM. Liang came first by sea.
Liang, you said, was the deputy or commander of Division 117. Did he go on the plane or did he go by sea?
I did not see Liang on the plane together with all of those people. Liang went first a few days, 1 or 2 days before Rome.
And do you know whether Liang, when he went a few days earlier, whether he went on a plane or a boat or a car?
He did not go by car. He went by sea. He was on a ship transporting the wounded, the not seriously wounded soldiers, and also ammunition. And for seriously wounded soldiers, they were transported by land.
Thank you, and I'd like you to listen carefully now and just say yes, no, or I don't know. You said Rom was on the plane that day. Is that correct?
Yes, he was on the plane that day. On that day.
Do you know whether Sector Secretary Moen was on the plane that day or not? Or if you're not sure, just say.
Let me clarify. I drove Rom and Jane in the same vehicle. They were friends, and Chen and Pon. Moon was on the way with us as well, but on that particular day I was in a hurry, so I had left first. They were in the same convoy bouncing for Phnom Penh.
So the Kracha District Secretary Yang was on the plane that day, and you also referred to Chen. Is that alias Pon? Is that the Secretary of Snoal District?
Chen alias Pon was the Snoal Secretary. He was in the same vehicle.
And the Deputy Secretary of Sector 505, or you said that Con, who was on the Sector Committee, was he on the plane that day? Yes, no, or you're not sure?
As I told you earlier, I drove them off together with the messengers. And after I dropped my passengers off, I reversed my vehicle and went away. They may have been on the plan altogether. 2 from sector, 2 from the district, and also from the division. And as I indicated earlier, Liang went to Phnom Penh first.
And do you know a person by the name of Svei Nun, Chief of Division 117?
I do not recall his surname, but his first name, Nim, member of division. I do not know the individual by the name Nam. National Co-Prosecutor, Mr. President, I would like to clarify the name, Svai Noñ, the name mentioned by the Co-Prosecutor, the International Deputy Co-Prosecutor.
Witness, is that name familiar with you?
I do not know Nam, but Nim. I heard the name Nam was mentioned, but there was an individual by the name Nim, and the wife may have been named Nam. National Co-Prosecutor, the name is Svai Noñ. Are you familiar with this particular individual by the name Svai Noñ? Witness, I have never heard. I did not hear that name back then. And I do not know whether that individual came to the location later on. No individual by the name Noñ. No, there was no any individuals by the name Noñ.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Mr. President, obviously we'll finish for today. I would just ask, we lost a little bit of time with the decisions and the discussions on documents, and I would ask if we could have the prosecution and the civil parties just have till the end of the first session tomorrow to resolve a couple of further details with the witness. No more than the first session, Your Honour, if that's acceptable.
President, yes, your request is granted. The hearing of testimony of the witness has now come to an end, and the Chamber will resume its hearing on 27 July 2016 at 9 a.m. And tomorrow the Chamber will continue hearing 2 TCW 1005. Please be informed. Mr. Witness, the hearing of your testimony has not come to a conclusion yet. You are therefore invited to come and testify once again tomorrow at 9 a.m. Court officers, please work with the West Sioux unit to send the witness to the place where he is staying at the moment, and please invite him into the courtroom tomorrow at 9 a.m. security personnel are instructed to bring the two accused, Nguyen Chi and Khieu Sampon, back to the ECCC's detention facility and have them returned into the courtroom tomorrow before 9 a.m. The court is now adjourned.